There comes a moment in life when you realize love isn't always returned, kindness isn't always respected, and your loyalty doesn't always get you loyalty in return. You gave your heart, your time, your silence, your forgiveness. And what did they give you back? Pain. They took your softness as weakness, your availability as desperation, your kindness as permission to keep hurting you. But enough is enough. There is power in going cold. There is wisdom in distance. There is healing in being unavailable. This isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your peace. It's about choosing yourself in a world that keeps asking you to choose others. The people who hurt you, they don't deserve your warmth. Stop offering fire to the ones who only ever came to freeze you. Stop pouring life into people who only show up to drain it. You don't owe them another conversation. You don't owe them another chance to break you. Some chapters are closed, not with rage, but with silence, with distance, with the decision to never let them get close again. If they made you cold, let it be the kind of cold that protects you, not bitterness, boundaries. You don't have to explain your silence. People who truly care about you won't need an explanation, and those who hurt you never deserved one. Silence is not weakness, it is restraint. It is discipline. When someone continuously wounds your soul, chips away at your spirit, and turns your light into a burden, you eventually reach a point where words no longer carry the weight they once did. You tried to talk. You tried to explain. You tried to meet them halfway, but they kept pushing your limits, expecting you to keep forgiving, to keep returning. Silence becomes a language of the strong. When the voice of reason falls on deaf ears, there is nothing left to argue, nothing left to defend. Your peace is no longer up for negotiation. And when you go quiet, they feel it. They hear it in the void where your voice once lived. The silence isn't about revenge. It's a declaration that you have finally chosen yourself over their chaos. It's not about punishment. It's about protection. You're not disappearing. You're preserving your energy. Because real healing doesn't happen in noise. It happens in stillness. And sometimes the loudest message you can send is saying nothing at all. Silence is where dignity lives. It's where you no longer ask for what should have been freely given. Respect, loyalty, compassion. When someone chooses to disregard your worth, your response doesn't need to be loud. It needs to be final. The hardest part of walking away isn't the absence. It's resisting the urge to explain why you're leaving. But that explanation often becomes a trap, a door back into the very pain you're trying to escape. Because some people only want to understand your pain long enough to use it against you. So let them stay confused. Let them wonder. Let them drown in the space you once filled with your kindness, your effort, your consistency. You are not responsible for correcting their understanding of you. You are responsible for preserving your peace. Silence protects your boundaries when your words are no longer respected. It teaches people that access to you is a privilege, not a right. And when that privilege is abused, your absence becomes your boundary. There's no speech that can substitute for a changed behavior. If someone cared, they would have listened before you ever had to leave. Every time you explained yourself in the past, you were giving pieces of yourself away, hoping they'd finally see you, hoping they'd finally change. But people don't change because of your pain. They change when they choose to grow. And some people choose ego over empathy every single time. That's why silence is so powerful. It removes you from the battlefield. It stops you from continuing a war that was only meant to exhaust you. Silence means you're no longer in the business of convincing people to treat you right. You're no longer invested in being understood by those who misunderstand you on purpose. You realize it's not your job to educate someone on how not to hurt you. If they cared, they would have never let it get this far. You're not cold, you're clear, you're not bitter, you're boundaried. The same people who tell you you've changed are the ones who took your consistency for granted. So be silent. Let them talk. Let them guess. Let them face the mirror of their own actions without the comfort of your validation. You've already said everything that needed to be said. Now your peace will do the rest. There is strength in not reacting. There is a deep, unwavering power in walking away quietly. That silence is not empty. It's full of answers. It's the sound of your spirit saying, I've had enough. And make no mistake, they hear it. People know when they've gone too far. They know when they've drained you dry. They pretend not to, but deep down, they always know. That's why silence disturbs them more than anger ever could. Anger gives them something to argue with. Silence gives them a mirror. It forces them to sit with themselves without the distraction of your energy. You've always been the one to reach out, the one to fix things, the one to explain, to comfort, to forgive. But now, you're the one who vanished into peace. And that kind of disappearance leaves an echo. It teaches them that you are not someone who can be endlessly leaned on and endlessly hurt. You are human. You have limits. And when you've been pushed past those limits, you don't break. You rise quietly with grace. And they will feel your absence louder than they ever felt your presence. They will say you became distant, that you changed, that you're being cold. But what they won't say is how many times they ignored your heart when it cried for help. How many chances they had to make it right. How many moments they dismissed your pain. They won't mention the countless times you bit your tongue just to keep the peace. No, they'll skip that part. But you don't need to respond. You don't need to clarify. Their version of the story is their burden, not yours. You lived your truth. You gave your all. You showed up even when it hurt. But now you're showing up for yourself, and that means not watering dead plants. That means no longer speaking where you're not heard. That means disappearing from spaces where your love is only consumed, never reciprocated. Your silence is the healing you needed. It's the answer to every unanswered question. It's the line you draw when you finally learn that you are enough without them. Your voice may be quiet now, but your boundaries are loud. And they will echo in every room you no longer enter. And maybe they'll reach out one day. Maybe they'll say, I miss you. Maybe they'll ask what happened. But you'll know, you'll feel it in your bones that nothing happened. You just stopped trying. You just stopped forcing connections that were built on disrespect. You just stopped giving pieces of yourself to people who never knew what to do with them. You healed in your silence. You rebuilt in your absence. You found peace in your own company, and you no longer crave explanations, apologies, or validation. The moment you chose silence, you chose freedom. You chose to no longer beg for understanding from the very ones who created confusion. Your heart deserves rest. Your mind deserves clarity, and your soul deserves peace. Let your silence be the proof that you no longer entertain what drains you. Let it be the final word in a story that never honored you. And if they really cared, they would have listened while you still had something to say. Now they'll have to learn to live without your voice, because it was never weak. It was golden. And now it's silent by choice. You don't have to explain your silence. When someone keeps crossing lines you never gave them permission to cross, when they repeatedly test your patience, your love, your boundaries, you get tired. Not overnight, slowly, quietly. You feel yourself disconnecting while still showing up. You smile while hurting. You reply while your heart is silent. And then one day you just stop. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, but because your soul can't afford to bleed for the same people who treat your love like it's disposable. They may notice your silence and wonder what changed. They may tell others you're acting different, but they won't tell them how many nights you cried, how many times you forgave, how much you gave just to be seen, to be valued. You don't owe them an explanation. Your silence is the answer to their disrespect. It's not your job to explain why you're healing in solitude. You don't need to justify your peace. Some people are only curious about your silence because it no longer benefits them. They didn't miss your presence, they missed your attention. Let your silence speak for you. It carries all the weight your words once tried to hold. People aren't blind to their actions. They just never believed you'd stop tolerating them. When you finally do, they call you distant. They label you cold, but they never address what drove you there. They ignore the countless second chances you gave, the patience, the understanding, the grace. You tried again and again. You made excuses for their behavior, convinced yourself to see the good in them, even when they didn't show it. But people don't change just because you keep loving them harder. They change when they choose to take accountability. And when that never happens, you grow quiet. Not because you've run out of love, but because you've run out of excuses. Silence becomes your armor. It protects what's left of your spirit. You no longer waste energy trying to fix what doesn't want to be fixed. They can think what they want. Let them create their own story. Let them paint you as cold, distant, heartless. The truth is, you're just done. You're done over-explaining, overextending, overcompensating. They didn't hear your voice when you were loud with love. Now let them hear your silence scream boundaries. There's something sacred about detaching. It doesn't mean you don't care anymore. It means you finally accepted reality. You saw what you needed to see, you felt what you needed to feel, and now you're honoring yourself by letting go of the noise. You don't need to sit at tables where your voice is dismissed. You don't have to stay in rooms where your presence is overlooked. Silence is how you reclaim your power. It's how you take back every piece of yourself you lost while trying to be everything for someone who gave you nothing in return. You're not being cruel, you're being clear. You're not avoiding conflict. You're choosing not to participate in cycles that break you. Not every story needs closure. Not every ending needs a final word. Some endings come in the form of quiet exits, of no texts, no calls, no arguments, just space. And in that space, you find yourself again. You remember what it feels like to breathe without anxiety, to exist without walking on eggshells. That silence isn't empty. It's full of peace, full of clarity, and full of strength. The loudest cry is sometimes the one you never hear. It's the silence of someone who's done explaining their worth. The person who used to beg for understanding now just walks away, not with hatred in their heart, but with freedom in their soul. They stopped arguing not because they lost, but because they realized nothing changes when someone isn't listening. So why waste breath? Why spill more words into a void? Your silence is not a void, it's a boundary, a firm one. One that says, I love me enough to leave what hurts. You've tried every way to be heard. Now your absence will be the lesson. Let them talk. Let them assume. They'll create a version of you that makes them comfortable, but don't fall into the trap of correcting their narrative. You're not here to be understood by people who enjoy misunderstanding you. Let them sit in the silence. Let them miss what they never appreciated. And if they ever ask why you went quiet, just smile. Because deep down, they already know. They just never thought you'd find the courage to go. You owe no one your peace of mind. Not even the ones you once loved. When someone breaks your heart repeatedly and still expects you to stay soft with them, it's not love, it's manipulation. They want your presence, not your healing. They want your energy, not your happiness. But you're allowed to walk away from that. You're allowed to protect your energy like it's the most valuable thing you own, because it is. Every time you lower your voice, every time you choose silence, it's not because you're weak, it's because you're wise. Wise enough to know that not every battle is worth fighting. Some people are addicted to chaos, and your peace threatens that. So when you go silent, when you stop replying, when you detach, they'll panic. Not because they love you, but because they can no longer control you. And that's okay. That's the point. You're not theirs to damage anymore. You're not a resource. You're not an emotional doormat. You're a human being, and you finally remembered your worth. Let your silence be your power. Let it guard your soul. And when you finally find peace, don't let anyone guilt you back into noise, into explaining, into justifying. You've walked through enough fire. You've cried in enough silence. You've healed through your own darkness. You don't owe your process to anyone. You're allowed to go ghost. You're allowed to leave unanswered texts. You're allowed to protect your peace without a warning. If someone truly loved you, they would have noticed when you started fading, but they were too busy taking, too busy assuming you'd always be there. But your silence has changed the story. Now, you're the one who doesn't show up. You're the one who doesn't reach out. You're the one who doesn't explain. And that is the healing they never saw coming. So sit in your silence. Let it wrap around you like armor. Let it remind you of everything you survived. Because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't saying a word. It's living so free, so unbothered, so untouchable that those who hurt you can't even find a way back in. Detachment is not coldness. It is not cruelty. It is clarity. It is power. It is finally understanding that your peace cannot be built in places that only ever gave you pain. It's the moment you stop asking, why don't they care about me, and start saying, why am I allowing this energy near me at all? Detachment is not shutting people out. It's realizing who was never truly in. It's when your heart says enough before your mouth does. You detach not because you don't feel. but because you felt too much. You gave your love to people who only knew how to take. You poured your soul into places that were never meant to hold that kind of depth. And when it finally broke you, you learned to pull back, not in fear, but in wisdom. You stopped begging to be chosen. You stopped chasing closure. You stopped explaining your pain to people who kept handing you more of it. And in that stillness, in that space where your energy returned to you, you realized you didn't lose them. You found yourself. That's detachment. Not giving up, but letting go of what was never yours to carry in the first place. Detachment is what happens when your survival instinct finally kicks in. When your heart stops letting you stay where it's constantly being bruised. You realize that holding on to people who don't respect your presence is more damaging than standing alone. Detachment teaches you that not everything that leaves your life is a loss. Sometimes it's a rescue. Sometimes it's the universe clearing space. Because the truth is, some people only love you when you're useful. They only care when they need something. And as long as you stay attached, emotionally available, and easy to reach, they will keep using that access to drain you. Detachment teaches you to close the door gently but firmly. Not out of bitterness, but out of self-worth. You stop fighting to be understood. You stop begging to be treated right. You let your energy become exclusive. And suddenly, your silence becomes a statement. Your absence becomes noticeable. The people who once overlooked your presence now feel the gap you left behind. But you're not interested in being missed. You're interested in being at peace. You don't need to explain your detachment. You just need to live in it. There is strength in not reacting. There's power in watching someone who once had the ability to destroy your mood now have zero access to your emotions. Detachment makes you emotionally bulletproof. You become unshakable, not because you've hardened your heart, but because you've elevated your standards. You realize that not everyone deserves a seat at your table. Not everyone should be allowed near your mind, your time, your soul. You used to be available for every call, every text, every apology. Now, you're not even answering the door they used to walk through so easily. Detachment makes your spirit private. You stop telling people how they hurt you. You just move differently. You just protect yourself, not with walls, but with wisdom. And the ones who truly love you, the ones who honor you, they'll never have to feel that side of you. Because your detachment isn't meant to punish, it's meant to protect. It's your soul's way of saying, I've been wounded here before. I'm not coming back for more. And once you learn to detach from what doesn't serve you, you become unstoppable. You no longer fear walking away. You fear staying stuck. That's the difference. You used to believe that detaching made you heartless, that pulling back made you cold. But the truth is, detachment is the deepest form of self-respect. It's knowing when to stop trying, when to stop giving chances, when to stop handing out explanations to people who never listened in the first place. You realize that emotional availability is sacred. It's not something to be thrown at people who can't even show up with consistency. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop over-investing. You stop building dreams in your head with people who only brought nightmares. You stop fantasizing about healing with the ones who broke you. And in that detachment, you grow. You find space to breathe, to rebuild, to recover. You finally hear your own voice again without it being drowned by noise, without it being twisted by guilt. The silence that comes with detachment isn't lonely, it's peaceful, it's honest, it's rare. You're no longer glued to false promises. You're no longer addicted to potential. You love yourself enough now to release what doesn't align with your future. And that kind of freedom, it's not a defect, it's a decision, a powerful one. Some people are confused when you go quiet, when you stop reaching out, when your love no longer arrives like it used to. But they weren't confused when they were taking you for granted. They weren't confused when they ignored your efforts. Your detachment feels harsh to them only because your availability was too generous. Now your absence teaches the lesson your words never could. You've stopped negotiating your worth. You've stopped fighting to stay in places you were never celebrated. Detachment makes you see clearly. You begin to recognize who brings peace and who brings problems. You begin to feel the difference between being needed and being used. You used to feel guilty for pulling away. Now, you feel guilty for staying too long. for ignoring the red flags, for shrinking yourself to keep others comfortable. Detachment doesn't erase the love, it just redirects it. Back to you, back to your growth, your healing, your purpose. And the moment you start choosing yourself, everything shifts. People don't get the same version of you anymore. They get the version that's learned, that's elevated, that's grounded. Detachment isn't distance, it's direction. So if you're detaching right now, don't apologize, don't explain, don't feel guilty. This is your power in motion. This is your heart learning to protect itself. You're not heartless. You're just finally honoring your heart. You're not selfish. You're just done being selfless for people who wouldn't do the same for you. Let them call you distant. Let them say you've changed, because you have. You've grown. You've evolved. You've risen. Detachment isn't about never feeling again. It's about never settling again. It's about not wasting energy on people who refuse to grow, who refuse to meet you halfway. You've done enough. You've loved deeply. You've tried harder than most. And now you're choosing peace over people. You're choosing silence over chaos. You're choosing healing over history. That's not weakness. That's power. That's maturity. That's self-love. The kind of love that doesn't need permission. The kind of love that saves you. Because at the end of the day, the ability to detach from what destroys your spirit isn't a flaw. It's your superpower. Own it, live in it, and never apologize for it again. So here you are now, standing in the strength that once felt impossible to claim. You've walked through fire that tried to break you, poured your love into people who only saw it as convenience, and stayed in rooms where your voice echoed with no reply. But all of that has changed. You've learned that silence isn't surrender. It's a signal of self-worth. You no longer explain your peace because your presence now speaks for itself. And where you used to be constantly available, constantly giving, constantly explaining, you've found the power in becoming unavailable to what wounds your spirit. You've stopped fighting battles that only left you bruised and started protecting your heart with quiet strength. You've embraced the gift of detachment, not as a way to shut down, but as a way to rise up. You know now that your energy is valuable, that not everyone deserves access to it, that walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Detachment isn't about building walls, it's about knowing where to build bridges and where to burn them. It's about loving deeply and still knowing when to let go. It's the kind of strength that doesn't roar but whispers, I am enough. You've stopped chasing closure because you've given it to yourself. You've stopped over-explaining because peace doesn't need justification. You've stopped waiting for people to value you and started showing yourself what real value looks like. And now you carry yourself with a quiet confidence, a steady flame. You don't beg for space, you don't plead for love. You attract what aligns and detach from what doesn't. That is growth. That is freedom. That is your new power. To anyone listening who's tired, who's worn down by giving too much to the wrong people, let this be your permission to choose yourself, to heal out loud or in silence, to protect your peace like the treasure it is. Because once you understand your worth, detachment isn't something you struggle with, it's something you honor. Thank you for listening. Stay strong, stay grounded, stay unavailable to anything that threatens your peace. You owe no one an apology for protecting your energy. May you walk forward with courage, carry your silence with pride, and hold your peace like it's sacred. God bless you. Stay empowered.